I think I broke the pronunciation. Murilo, right?
Yeah,
that's better. Okay. He's going to talk about the search for artificial life in dlang. So take it away.
The search for artificial life in dlang. Well, that's a little bit of a teasy title for a talk, but what I'm going to talk about here is, have you ever heard of those software in which you can create a model of a biological system in order to watch it work? Like you can place the organisms, watch them interact, evolve. Some people use them for educational purposes or for research. I have started creating my own because I have noticed most of them were very limited. I've decided to create one which would be more complete, more realistic, and at the same time, very fast, one that doesn't require a supercomputer. And for that, I have used, of course, the language because of how very fast it is. This is just a beautiful image I found on the internet. When you think about evolution, you probably picture something like a stairway of apes. It was actually not like that. It was quite different from that, but that's what most people think about. And somebody had this brilliant idea to place the chimpanzee in front of a robot, meaning maybe in the future we are all going to become robots. I hope not. The definition of life. Why is it that a dog is considered life and this cup right here, this paper cup, is not considered life? Well, in order for something to be classified as life, it needs to have at least one cell. The cell is the building block of life. That's why viruses are not even classified as life. It needs to be something which reproduces, because that is the only way it can continue to exist. Otherwise, it will disappear in the blink of an eye. And it needs to be something that is like some form of machine that handles energy, that takes energy. It could be from the sun, it could be from plants, it could be from a prey it has just taken, and it uses this energy in order to function just like a machine would. One great place for you to start learning about this fascinating subject is the YouTube channel of this guy here, Primer. This YouTube channel is really, really cool. The guy uses some animations made with Blender and a code written in Python in order to explain how evolution works. Okay, about other life simulation software. When I was a kid, I played this game called Spore. I played it so much. It was a game in which you would create your own creature and it would evolve from a mere bacteria into an animal and then into a whole civilization, and then it would evolve into having spaceships and traveling across the universe. It was really, really fun. And you could design your own organism. You could select the color, how many legs, all of those things. But of course, it was just a game. It wasn't a true simulation. It was designed for entertainment, not for education. But there is Conway's Game of Life, which is one probably some of you have heard about. This one is a serious one, which is used for research. This one, it really has all of the algorithms, the mathematical models about how life works, but it is a simple software where you only have those colorful squares. So what if we could fuse the two of them into one, right? What if we could have something with the complexity of Conway's Game of Life and the beauty of Spore? This is Charles Darwin. All of you know who he is. He's the one who figured it out. There were other people. There was a guy called Lamarck and some others, but he was the one who managed to understand it best when he published his book on the origin of species. And he managed to fully understand how it works after spending some time here on the Galapagos Islands, which are a group of islands in the Pacific Ocean. And he noticed that certain birds existed on several islands, and they were nearly identical. There were only some minor difference, like the birds on one island, for some reason, had their beak a little thicker and bigger than the birds from the other islands. And then he noticed that on that island, the fruits were hard. It required a strong beak for you to pierce it. And then he started realizing that the differences in the birds were related to the environment where they lived. But contrary to what many people at the time thought, and what many people still think, the body of the bird does not change in order to become adapted to the environment. What happens is something else. How does it actually work? It is an amazing trick called the natural selection, which has nothing to do with the smartest or the strongest. Natural selection simply says that those individuals which can reproduce more often, the next generation will carry on their genes, and the next generations, therefore after several generations, you will see those traits nearly ubiquitous, like it will already have spread to most of them. So, for example, when the birds arrived on the island with hard fruits, those who had a small beak couldn't eat very much and died fast. Those with a big beak could eat more, and therefore their offspring would carry on those genes. And so the next generation had big beaks, and it kept happening again, generation after generation, until it reached a point in which all the birds on the island, they all had a strong beak. So your body does not change to the environment, but those who are not adapted die, and only the ones who are adapted remain. This is a simple image. Here you have a group of deers, and then they migrate to an environment which is a very cold place. Only those who have thick fur survive, and the next generation is going to have a much higher percentage of individuals with thick fur, and the next generation after that, and so on. But how did it all start? In order for organisms to exist, they needed to have reproduced out of something, right? You came from your parents, who came from their parents, who came from their parents, and so on. But what was the very first? That is the question. Scientists believe it was this thing over here, the RNA. It is something that can be formed spontaneously given the right chemical conditions. And once it forms, it has this magical ability to copy itself. And as it copies itself, some of the copies come out different. And as a result, you get to have different forms of RNA, and it will evolve until it ends up with all this diversity of life here on our planet. How did sexual reproduction help? What you're seeing here is I think it's marble lobster, they call it. It is an animal which can reproduce by itself. It can make itself pregnant, therefore it can reproduce alone. It doesn't require a partner. And if you stop to think about it, that is the way it should be, right? Let's suppose we have 40 men and maybe 2 women. If each person could reproduce by itself, then the next offspring would have 50 people, right? If each of the 48 men and each of the 2 women can reproduce alone, then each person creates one more. So 50 people create another 50. But because we require a partner for that, then in this case, we would only be able to make 2 more people, right? Because there are 48 men but 2 women, so we would only end up with 2 more people. In the whole world, we only produce half our population. Each time we reproduce, it takes 2 people to make 1. So you can only create half the original population, and then you have to keep doing it again and again in order to, like, each couple needs to have 2, 3, 4 kids. If we could reproduce alone, then each time we reproduce, we would create another 100%. Why don't we do that? Well, there are some different debates about it, but some scientists think it is because when you fuse your DNA with someone else's DNA, it helps correct the flaws in your DNA and the DNA of the other person, so the offspring comes out with a better DNA. But another hypothesis, which is the most popular one, is the one of the Red Queen. Yes, the Red Queen. The name is after the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland. When you have a sexual reproduction, the result is you have many, many people. Each one has kind of a unique DNA, so each one has unique traits. Therefore, if a bacteria or a virus shows up and starts spreading, many will die, but some will survive. If we did not have sexual reproduction, we would all be clones. We would all have the identical DNA. For example, this lobster, all individuals of this species, they all have the exact same DNA. They are all clones, which means if one bacteria or a virus can kill one, it can kill all of them, which means they are not going to exist for very long. Soon, they are going to run into some pathogen, which is going to wipe them out. Whereas those organisms that reproduce with sexuality, like us, we have already been attacked by so many different pathogens, and we are still here, right? The idea is to keep making people with different DNA, because the bigger the diversity, the higher the odds that at least some of them will be able to survive the outbreak of some disease, like, for example, the coronavirus. Some of us died, some caught it and didn't even feel anything. AIDS. There are some places in Africa where the people, they have a partial immunity to it. They can catch the virus, but the virus doesn't cause much harm to them. Here, take a look. Those are all the big cats, the felines. Look, you have so many of them, right? You have the cougar, you have the lynx, the leopard, the tiger, you have the lion, which does not appear here, but there are so many of them, right? But when it comes to us, there are so few of us, right? You do not see different species of human beings walking the earth. There is only one species, only Homo sapiens, right? Isn't that a little strange? Why is it that there is only one of us when all the other animals have so many different variations of them? Here, our lost cousins. There was the Homo heidelbergensis. I don't know if it's pronounced like that. The Homo floresiensis, the Neanderthal, and the Denisovans. Those are some that have been found. There may have been others. All of those lived along with us. They existed only some tens of thousands of years ago. They exist along with the Homo sapiens. So they should be still here. They were intelligent as well. Maybe not as much as the Homo sapiens, but they also they looked like us. They made fire. They made tools to hunt. So why aren't they still here? It turns out, for some strange accident, they all went extinct, and only one, the Homo sapiens, was lucky enough to remain alive. So unfortunately, we lost our cousins and we ended up alone. These are some images of what the Homo heidelbergensis probably looked like. You can see, looks similar to us. Maybe the brain was a bit smaller, but it looks so similar. I think if we had one of them here, we would not even notice. We would think it is just another man. The Homo floresiensis. This one is interesting because it was a small one. Some people have compared them to hobbits. It is because they ended up on an island. Food was scarce. So the smaller you are, the less food you need to eat every day, right? So they ended up evolving into small people. And this is an image of what they probably looked like. I know in this image it looks like a chimp, but this species, it was an intelligent species like us. Not as much as us, but they were probably close. And the Neanderthal. You can see in this second picture, right? It has red hair. Some scientists believe the Neanderthal, they had white skin, red hair, and freckles. But there is evidence that they went extinct before we human beings had that. So some people think the red hair and freckles we humans have could be a heritage from them, but there is evidence that freckles and red hair only appeared in the Homo sapiens thousands of years after the Neanderthal had already gone extinct. The Denisovan, last I checked, they did not know yet what it looked like because they had little data on it. But they believed it looked similar to the Neanderthal. So this is an image of what a Denisovan possibly looked like. Why do we have different races, right? You look across the room and you see so many different colors of skin, hair, eye, so many different shapes of mouth and nose and head, so many different heights. There is more to it than just sunlight. Most people think human beings started black in Africa, migrated to Europe, they turned white, and this is it, because in Europe there was little sunlight. It is way more complex than that, because it turned out our lost cousins, we interbred with them, which means we all carry, most of us, not all, but most of us carry a small percentage of their DNA. We are hybrids. Most of us carry more than just Homo sapiens genes. What you're seeing here, this image, is the image of Danny, a fossil, which scientists believe was the child of a Neanderthal with a Denisovan. Apart from some of the African population, all the rest of the world has a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. There are some places in Africa where the people are 100% Homo sapiens. But apart from those places, everywhere else, the people have a small percentage of Neanderthal, and there are many places where they have a small percentage of Denisovan. Chances are many people here in this room, if we manage to check your DNA, we would find traces of the Neanderthal and the Denisovan inside you. Now to business, enough biology. You came here for dlang, right? Where does it fit in? This is DConf, and I am talking about evolution. I think some of you may be getting bored by now, but finally I'm gonna get to it. That's what you wanted to see. Why did I do that? One reason why I did that was, well, first, because it would be a great talk subject for me to be selected for this conference. Second, because it is very fun. Third, well, there is one reason. I hope my software may later evolve into something more commercial and more scientific. Maybe my software will be used by universities in the future, because I always found biological simulations amazing because they hold the key to create better machines. This is just an image from the internet showing a mechanical fish. But the idea is, by watching how organisms work, we may figure out how to make better robots, better software, because think about it. Your body is able to run, jump, hold things. It is able to think, to recognize faces. Nature can create such fantastic machines. So we could learn from that. Instead of simply trying to create our own machines from scratch, we could take a look at the machines that have already been created by nature itself, right? The airplane was created after they watched birds fly. The neural networks, they were created after they investigated how the human brain works. Meet the amazing slime mold. This creature I'm going to show you, it's a mold which grows, and scientists think it has some sort of intelligence and it is able to hold some form of memory. They say it is able to solve some puzzles, some mazes, because it grows in a way which resembles the way a complex system works, like the way neurons in your brain would work. I had seen once a video years ago, I don't know if it is true, but it said that they made like a miniature map of the city of Tokyo. All the buildings were actually pieces of food. They put this slime mold in there. It started growing in order to get the food. And after a while, they saw that the blob grew and formed a pattern of connections, which was very similar to the subway of the city of Tokyo. Okay, now the moment you've all been ready for, I'm gonna run the biological simulation software. But first, there is a good friend I want all of you to meet. I want you guys to meet this animal here. It's called a capybara. I see it in my city all the time. It is a rodent, just like a hamster, but it is the biggest one on Earth. It exists in South America, and it swims very, very well, by the way. You see packs of 20 of them swimming in the lake all the time. And they are very friendly too. They are very cute, aren't they? Okay, so here it is. The ARSD library, that library made by that guy called Adam Roop. That's what I use. The images of the environments, the images of the foods, the images of the interface, the images of the organisms, the sounds. This is a manual explaining how it works. This is a file which is kind of like a documentation of the source code. I am writing a documentation in this format. It says what the code is doing. That way, if you want to understand the code, you can read it alongside this here. This is the source code. So as you can see, number 1, the number 1 here maps to the number 1 here. The number 2 here maps to the number 2 here. The number 3 maps to it as well. Here, the number 3. The source code is getting very big, but of course, what you're seeing here is just the very tip of the iceberg. I have also this other file here called toolbox, which is where I have all the classes, functions, structs, the variables. This is where I have all the tools which are going to be used in the source code itself. I always do that. I always create a file called toolbox where I place all the tools which are going to be imported later. Okay, let's run it. Biosimulator. You can switch off the soundtrack, your choice. There is a manual here for the user who doesn't know it yet. And you can change pages here to read it. Now we can start a simulation. Here, you can go back, restart it. You can start a random, meaning the software will pick randomly an environment, foods, organisms, and you're just gonna watch what it chose for you. It chooses stuff randomly, right, using the std.random module of dlang, or you can create your own custom simulation. Now you can choose an environment. Here you have the outback, the rainforest, the tundra, the savanna, the desert. Let's pick the outback. Now you can select the amount of foods. You have grass, apple, orange, lettuce, carrot, blackberry, banana, cabbage, cherry, cucumber, grape, peach, pitaya, raspberry, tangerine, leaves, watermelon, pistachio, avocado, acorn, tomato, and I am gonna add many more. Right, this is gonna be a long-term project because I'm gonna have to add so many. Here, let's add some apples. Too many, a little less. 20 apples, 5 carrots, and many blackberries. There. Okay, some cabbages too. Now, next. Now you can select the amount of organisms you want, right? Here. You have the capybara, the cow, the donkey, the leopard, the squirrel, the lion, the anaconda, the rat, giraffe, alligator, badger, chimpanzee, frog, fox, the green rat, snake. This one, the name got too big. I have to increase the interface here so it's big enough to fit this name. But anyway, you can pick how many males and females. So I'm gonna put 10 male capybaras, 10 female capybaras. I'm gonna put 6 male cows, 8 female cows. I'm gonna put 2 male leopards and 1 female leopard. Okay, let's start it. The simulation is running. The creatures, they are moving around, and you can navigate the map. And you can increase the speed too. There, now it's much faster. Let's make it a little slower. You can end it if you want. We're gonna go back to the home screen. If you want to, you can restart it, like it's going to restart with the exact same numbers you had selected, the exact same amount of animals and foods and the environment you had selected. Yeah, let's restart it. There. It restarts. It will later become a simulation which will contain thousands, maybe tens of thousands of organisms. It's going to be heavy duty. It's going to be very heavy duty on your CPU, so you can go into blind mode. It is still running in the background, it's just not drawing anything here. The simulation is running blind, meaning it isn't drawing the creatures and the foods in order to use less CPU time and run faster. But when I remove it, oh look, this is moving downwards, right? So I go blind, I wait some seconds, and when I see again, it has moved. So it's still moving. It is blind, but everything is still happening. You can take a look at the status of the simulation here. It gives you the start date, the total of live organisms, dead organisms, the total of organisms live and dead, the total foods, the available foods. Mean the total foods is the number of foods that had started, but some of them have already been eaten, right? So now we only have available 99 of them. And you can freeze the simulation in order to examine it here. Once I freeze it, everything stops happening, and I can click on something here. I can click in order to see what it is. It's a blackberry, which gives 500 joules of energy if an animal eats it. That's a leopard. It is alive, status, name, gender, male, the amount of energy its body has available, the muscle weight, the fat weight. The total weight is muscle plus fat plus bones plus organs, so the total weight is that. This is the height of the animal. This is the speed at which it moves. This is the diameter of the pupil of the eye of the animal. I'm going to explain you the reason for that very soon. This is the distance it has walked since it last ate something, and this is how far it is able to see. It is able to see 98 meters ahead of it. You can move things around too here. If you click with the right button, I can move it here. I can move the food too. I can even move it to other parts of the map here. I can put it right here if I wanted to. This blue square is the vision of the organism. So the leopard can see everything within this blue square. The cow can only see everything within this blue square. So each animal has its own vision. The capybara can see within this blue square. Okay, you guys have seen it all, but you guys are probably wondering how it works. So each Organism is a class which has its own image, name, right? The weight, the speed, the list of foods it eats, and it has a algorithm which tells it how to move. So it keeps moving. It simply picks a direction randomly, and it keeps walking straight in that direction, searching for food, because food gives energy. When it eats the food, it acquires the energy of that food. However, if it sees a predator, then it starts running in the opposite direction, and therefore its speed increases. But if the speed increases, then the energy it consumes at each move will also increase. As the animal moves, it burns its fat for energy. If it runs out of fat, it burns its muscle, which doesn't yield as much energy as the fat, but it still does. And once it runs out of muscle, then it dies. So the animal has to be finding food in order to maintain energy in order to survive. However, as the animal loses fat, it becomes lighter and it uses less energy to move. And the animals, they reproduce too. So here, I'm going to put this capybara close to these berries. It's going to move to eat those berries. There. It is moving. There, it ate the berries. Now, I'm gonna take this leopard. Oh, this leopard is hunting this capybara over here. Look. It's chasing it. But the capybara is running faster than it. I am going to help it out here. I'm gonna place it right here. There. Let's help it. Almost. There. There. Now it killed and ate it, and now what you see here is just the corpse of the capybara. Yeah. If you click on it, now it shows status dead. It shows everything it had before it got killed. And now just to finish it up, because I know my time is up, let me show how they reproduce here.
Yeah, I'm thinking we can have questions going while this is running on in the background. What do you guys think? Yeah, let's see some more capybaras.
Here, these two, they're going to see each other, and watch what happens. They meet, and a third capybara appears. So now there are 3 of them. This new one here, a new capybara. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Very nice presentation simulator. So I was in grad school. I worked with a lot of biologists who would probably love to have actually a tool like this for like population studies and that kind of thing. Have you thought about talking to researchers at universities and kind of showing them this and what you could develop?
Yes, I am just waiting for it to become a little more mature, and then I am going to start doing that, because I am trying to make it as realistic as possible. For example, you see here it says the height and the eye pupil diameter. It is because in order to calculate how far the animal can see, it depends on how tall it is and the size of the pupil of the eye. For example, the eagle with a very big pupil can see much further than a mouse that has a small pupil. Also here, you see that the units are in joules, meters. I try to use the international system. So everything here has to be in the units which are used in science. So meters per second, kilograms, joules. I could have made the diameter of the eye pupil in millimeters, but now it has to be meters because this is the international system of units. And here you can see the vision range. With this height and this eye, it can see 38 meters ahead. So I am still maturing it into something even more realistic. I have to add water to the body of the animals. I have to add the ability to find and drink water. I have to add the temperature of the environment, because you can see here, look, the sun is going up. It goes up right here. This is the time elapsed. Hours, minutes, days, months, years. So the sun goes up, and once it reaches the limit here, it is going to turn into night, and then the environment is going to be darker. However, I have not yet set up so that the temperature will be smaller, but as you can see, both the environment and the map are now dark as the moon is moving. So I am still working on all the details before I start advertising it.
Oh, Ricky's asking on the internet if there's going to be like classic wolf and sheep or wildfire models in the future for this thing.
Yes, of course, there will be. There will be, definitely.
If there's no other questions, I think we can just say thank you.